And good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jason Barr along with Pat Parris. This is the Huddle, KGUN9 streaming sports talk show on your favorite digital channels. We're going to talk some Arizona basketball here in a minute. And also, you can write in with your comments. And if it's clean, we'll read them. Ask a question, make a comment, whatever your heart desires. Pat, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm well, Jason. How about you?
Good. And I think we got to start for sure with the big basketball game tonight. The second-ranked Arizona Wildcats play at USC, and if the Wildcats win, they are the Pac-12 champions, regular season, that is, for the first time since 2018. It's not going to be easy. USC has not lost since the Wildcats beat them in McKale Center. They are a very good team. They've been ranked pretty much the whole season. They're in second place in the Pac-12, and it's going to be sold out tonight at Gale Coliseum.
Yeah, and for USC, this is where they were picked to finish. Remember, it was UCLA was supposed to win the Pac-12 preseason. USC was supposed to finish second. I think Arizona was picked to finish fourth. Nobody thought Arizona would do what the Wildcats have been able to do. But you see the standings, so important to get this win. And maybe one of the things that you won't see when you look at standings or where they are as far as rankings go and where they are for the net rankings and where they might be as a number one seed or all of that. Bouncing back after the loss to Colorado, I think, is huge for this team. How they respond. They weren't expecting to stumble at Colorado the way they did. I don't think anybody thought that, but it was the Saturday of upsets to end all Saturday of upsets in college basketball. They weren't the only ones, so they stay at number two. But I think the response is really important tonight, Jason.
Yeah, and if you look at their previous two losses, they were not bad losses at all. You're talking about a ranked team, on the road at Tennessee, I believe, and then a third road game in 1 week at UCLA. Those are tough losses, and this has really been their only stumble this year. And to make too much of it, I don't think is a good idea. Especially when you look at, like you said, all the other teams that have lost. Yeah, it's a little disappointing because had they won that game, they'd be the number one team in the country because Gonzaga lost.
Right.
I mean, they were that close to being number one in the country. Now, if they lose tonight, they're still going to win the Pac-12, right? They've got 2 home games later this week. But if I've seen some projections where if they lose tonight and Kansas wins, the Wildcats could actually drop down and be a number 2 seed. And does it really matter if you're a 1 or a 2? I think it's prestigious to have a 1 seed, and I'd prefer them to have the 1 seed in the South than to have them have the 2 seed in the West and possibly go up against Gonzaga in an Elite 8 matchup, although I'm sure a lot of people would like to see that.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see them play Gonzaga at some point, but I'd love to see it as number one seeds. So
In the
that means
Final
that they're
Four,
not
yeah.
playing until the Final Four.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
And you can't make too much out of it. Remember, in the net ranking world of the net ranking is what the NCAA tournament selection committee uses to kind of get a base, a kind of an overview of where all the teams are and where they should be ranked. And Arizona's number 2 in that as well, behind Gonzaga. And the way they calculate that is, your tier 1 wins, your top wins, your tier 2, your tier 3, and tier 4. And right now, Arizona has 2 tier 1 losses. That is at Tennessee and at UCLA. And even the Colorado loss is a tier 2 loss. So it didn't really hurt them, obviously, because they were at number 2 before Saturday night and they were number 2 after Saturday night, even after that loss. You're going to stumble on the road in the conference. But what you can't do, I don't think if you're Arizona, is you can't lose tonight. They could, obviously. USC is good, as you pointed out. They haven't lost since they lost here at McKale. But this is the kind of game that you would hope the response would be there and you'd get back on the winning track. And then you win these last 2 games against the Bay Area schools Thursday and Saturday. And then you head into the Pac-12 tournament riding a pretty good roll.
Thursday and Saturday are going to be pretty special. I think you're going to see that, the Lou Elson night is going to be one night, and then likely cutting down the nets. My guess is they do that Saturday, even if they clinch before. You're not concerned that they lost, Pat, but how concerned are you that Christian Coloco was neutralized by Colorado?
And we've seen that in the past too. When he gets in foul trouble, then Ballo has to step up. And in the case with Colorado, I think they present some matchup problems. And Tad Boyle, give him credit. They were not good against Arizona State 2 days earlier, and they had a great game plan for Arizona. And you know what they always say, when a team that's not supposed to win the game, when you let them hang around a little bit, that gives them all kinds of confidence. And that's what happened with Colorado. They gave them confidence. And to your point, I'm a little concerned that the blueprint's there for Christian Coloco. So it's up to Christian Coloco to prove everybody wrong that this is just that was just a bad game or an off night, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and when you take a look at, oh, we just got a comment there. I wasn't sure. Let's take a look here. Game days. I think somebody's trying to support Max Preps. You know what? Max Preps does a fantastic job. We don't do high school sports on this show. But shout out to Max Preps and all the sites out there that give high school coverage its proper due.
And it's not that we won't. It's not that we won't mention. Hey, great night last night for South Point girls, and the South Point boys ended up unfortunately losing. Tonight it's the Flowing Wells girls. We'll mention that, but because of the nature of this show and perhaps the sponsorship, we're just going to stick with college.
We'll do it. We had great coverage, Pat, on K-Gun 9 News yesterday with the South Point.
Yes, we did. Ryan Fish did a great job up there with Craig Mills, our photographer. Great job.
Now, the women's basketball team, the situation has changed here, with the injury to Kate Reese and a loss, and now here they are at 16 in the net rankings. And you want to stay, at 16. Well, that's the men's team video.
There we go. Without Kate Reese,
stay at 16, right? Because you want to be able to host the NCAA tournament, and the top the top 4 seeds in each region host. And so if you're in the top 16, you're going to be one of those top 4 times 4. And you know what, Pat? After this team was denied a chance to host the NCAA tournament 2 years ago because COVID just broke, and then last year because the entire tournament took place in San Antonio, for them to miss out this year by 1 spot, really, I think would be heartbreaking. With the way that the fans have turned out for this team and the way this team has really improved the whole program for the last few years, I think that would be really disappointing. They've got to win, tomorrow against Colorado in the Pac-12 tournament. It's going to be very, very hard, to beat Stanford, one of the top teams in the country, in the semifinals of the Pac-12 tournament. They might need a little luck as far as who wins or who loses out, right around them in the other tournaments in the 15, 16, 17, 18 range.
Yeah, and they've got to win their first round game. I actually think it's Thursday, Jason, the Colorado-Washington winners, who they play Thursday afternoon at 1. Yeah. And then they would run into Stanford. But they win that one game, and I think I won't say they're a lock. I think they're close to being a sure bet. And the reason why I think, and it just dawned on me as you were talking about them missing out last year at being at home and missing out, obviously, the year before, what the tournament selection committee also has to look at is if there's a close, let's say, should we take Arizona or should we take team X? Well, Arizona is going to have 8,000, 10,000 fans at those games.
And we saw that 3 years ago in the WNIT tournament, and that's why they got so many home games.
I think that helps a lot. I think this team winning on Thursday.
But do you think really somebody's going to do a net ranking based on what they're going to host? Aren't they going to go right by the net ranking, or is that
the net rankings? The net rankings are their starting point, but as we've seen, the net rankings aren't always the last word on what they do. That's where they start. So my point is, if they're 16, 17, 18 in the net rankings, and they're trying to decide, should we make them a 4 seed or a 5 seed? But they're going to make them a 4 seed. I also think that right now I think ESPN has Arizona, even though they're, as you mentioned, 16 in the net ranking, number 14 in the AP, they still have them as a number 3 seed. So I think that there is pedigree. Now suddenly they're one of the top 10 teams nationally, or at least regarded as that because of Adia Barnes and what she's done, because they made the national finals last year. I think a lot of things are going for them. Go ahead and win on Thursday by all means, and that'll make it a lot easier. But I'm still very hopeful that they'll get one of those top 4 seeds and host the first 2 games on that initial weekend.
All right, Pat, I just got an alert. We got some breaking sports news here. Major League Baseball cancels opening day and some regular season games after owners failed to reach deal with players. Can you believe it? I mean, 2 years after they couldn't play because of COVID, now they can't come to an agreement. With these negotiations, it's all going to come down to the last minute, until, as for players, when paychecks are missed, which is when they start playing, they don't get paid, in the off season. But what a turnoff and what a disappointment that 2 years after they couldn't play because of COVID, now they're not going to play because they can't decide how to divide up millions, if not billions of dollars.
Well, I thought it spoke volumes, Jason. About an hour and a half ago, Major League Baseball owners presented their best and last offer before the 5 o'clock East Coast deadline today. And within minutes, it was rejected. Within minutes, it was rejected. So the Major League Baseball folks had no other choice but to cancel opening day, as you just mentioned, the breaking news. It is disappointing because, 2 years ago, they played a 50-game schedule. So they all lost money, right? Last year, they play a schedule, but attendance is down, just like it was in every, at every level. Attendance struggled at times last year. And so you're playing from behind again as far as your, finances as owners. And I'm not taking sides. It is what it is. They've got to hammer it out, and they've got to find a way to agree on something, because this sport, this Major League Baseball cannot afford to miss a long time. I will say this: your 11th hour is exactly right. And if a major leaguer can miss the bulk of spring training, they'll do it every time. So this isn't going to get settled until we get much closer to that 1st of April, when push comes to shove and they really got to get it done, because then they do start missing games. Let's say they have to shorten the season from 162 to 150.
Right, opening day has been canceled.
Right, but they could still push back. In other words, if they come to something in the next 2 weeks,
you could still fit in 160.
You could still fit.
That's not easy to do. You got to play a bunch of double headers, because as you know, there's a rule that says you have to have an off day within 20 days.
No, and they would have to agree to all that. Alex Steiniger says, "Go Padres." Well, it's too bad, because the Padres have built a pretty good team, and they really they've run into the Dodgers. If we can put up Alex Steiniger's comment, there we go. The point I'm trying to make is you still got a couple of weeks where you could fit in the schedule, but after that couple of weeks, it becomes impossible. And then you're costing the players paychecks, because they only get paid for the games they play. They don't get, suddenly if they play 150, they still get the 162 games worth of checks. No, doesn't work that way.
Yeah. All right. So the other topic we're going to talk about here is University of Arizona football has spring practice, begins tomorrow. Then they practice tomorrow. Then they have got a couple of weeks off. It is open to the public, so you can see some of these players who are supposed to be very exciting. Obviously, Jayden de Laura, the quarterback, who's the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, was at Washington State last year. You've got T-Mac, Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver. To me, this team has the most amount of talent at wide receiver. They're also very deep at defensive back. I don't know if the talent is as great there as it is in wide receiver. You've got the Jacob Cowling also coming in as a transfer receiver. I believe 20-something, around 22, give or take, new players in spring practice, and then another 19 new players coming in the fall. So a lot of new talent coming in. And, certainly I think a little bit of buzz based on the recruiting class that they had. Had they had the same old recruiting class, I don't know that I'd be so pumped up for spring football. But I want to see what T-Mac looks like, and Delora, the quarterback, and a couple of the other, a couple of the other players, the transfers too. The offensive lineman from Harvard, who's supposed to be very good, and a couple of other guys as well. Phizian Sprysock, defensive back, who's supposed to be very talented, and they fixed the problem. The number one issue that they're going to address, Pat, is the red zone. They were last in college football.
Says.
Okay,
yep.
I knew they were last in college football in the red zone in offense. I didn't know they were also last in college football in the red zone in defense as well. That's a heck of an accomplishment, Pat, to be.
Yeah, I wonder why they went 1-11. Yeah, I think I know why. I'm excited for multiple reasons. You listed many of them. I think the upgrade for Jayden, as Jayden de Laura comes into the program, the upgrade at quarterback, I think we can all agree, at least it looks like it's an upgrade at quarterback. And that's not a knock on Jordan McLeod or.
I was happy with McLeod going into the season.
I was too, but when you can get a Pac-12, offensive player of the year to transfer in to your program, you're going to take them every time. And that's the beauty of this transfer portal. The transfer portal giveth and it taketh away, obviously, but in this case it giveth. And you've got, one of the top quarterbacks in the conference coming in. I'm excited, but tempered excitement. Excited because of the talent. I got to see what happens on the field, Jason. I mean, we haven't
keep your expectations low.
Well, but the expectations are going to go high because you brought in, the second best recruiting class in the Pac-12 and one of the, top 25 recruiting classes in the country. So your expectations are, well, shouldn't they be a top 25 team?
No,
Yeah.
these are freshmen. That takes a few years to play out.
Agreed.
Keep in
Agreed.
mind
But
this
you
team is
understand.
1-23 in their last 24
That's 2 years.
games.
Yeah.
And to me,
Yeah.
there's even an asterisk by the win because Cal, half the offense couldn't come because
Well,
they had COVID.
they
So-
should have beat
so-
NAU. Well, let's not go down that road. I will say this. I'm excited.
4 wins right now is what I'm saying. I will change that as we go.
I'm going to wait. I'm going to hold
Right
out
now,
till I see
4
the spring
wins.
game. I'm going to wait for the spring game. But I think the talent's there.
They'll win the spring game.
Somebody, either red or blue, is going to somebody is going to win the spring game. I want to see not only development with this team. There's got to be some development with that coaching staff as well. I mean, they'll have another year under their belt. When you have a coach that's never been a head coach, it's all new, right? So let's just see what Jed Fish ends up doing, how things look, how they get off, what kind of start they get off to. It's not an easy schedule. We know that, but that's a long way down the road. Right now, tomorrow is day number 1. Then they go on spring break, which is interesting. But as he explained to us, that means that at the back end, they actually get more. They get more weightlifting time. They get more time together. It's just kind of all those NCAA rules and all the nuances. They calculate and they figure out if we do one practice, give them that time off, we're actually going to get 4 more weeks of basic spring football with them once they come back from spring break.
Yeah, apparently Michael Wiley and Stevie Rocker and the running backs are Drake Anderson is the other one, are bigger and stronger. Apparently they've each put on about 15 pounds in the off season in the weight program, and they could have used it. And, you're going to see, a player like Stevie Rocker, who's from CDO, improve the most between his freshman and sophomore year. And there were glimpses of that. So I think the running backs can be another position that's going to be improved. And, I'm looking forward to the tall wide receivers and seeing some red zone drills where they can maybe do some fade patterns and score in the red zone. So
well, you notice when we talk with Jed Fisher, he talked to us earlier today. I think the newspaper already put it on an article, so it's pretty obvious that we had kind of an impromptu kind of just a real laid back setting today. And he talked about the red zone, and he talked about. I mean, you heard how many times. Almost every single practice, they're going to build in time, whether it be, the entire, 22, 11 on 11, or even individual drills are nothing but designed with the red zone in mind, meaning that so people are saying, well, what's so hard about getting in the red zone? Well, the field becomes more compact. There's less room for the defense to have to cover. And so now you understand why it's more difficult for offenses to score. But isn't that the same advantage you want as a defense? But yet Arizona had problems in the defensive end of the red zone, and so they're working on that as well. And so maybe that's the beauty of it, Jason. When you're spending all this time working on your offense in the red zone, you're also getting your defense reps in the red zone to figure it out as well.
Yeah, just looking at the alerts coming in here. Here's the alert now by ESPN.
For Major League Baseball.
Yeah, more of the same. That didn't say in their alert that opening day has been canceled. Another alert I saw said no opening day.
It almost has to be.
It doesn't look good at this point. It doesn't look good. Too bad. And who you think about are the people who make their living off of that, whether it's concession stands, restaurants nearby, and things like that.
Some of our friends that did call the games. I mean, the broadcasters, we don't get to cover it every day, but of course, a lot of our counterparts in Phoenix get to cover it every day, and they're going to have a tough time, filling out what they're doing. So it's a lose-lose for everybody. I wish they would just, in all these labor disputes, there's got to be a middle ground, and you hope they come to it real quick.
For sure. All right. That does it here for K-Gun 9's Huddle, our streaming sports video talk show. Pat, any final words? I think that was a good note to end on. And,
yeah, it is. I just want to say, hopefully the Wildcats take care of business tonight and kind of get things righted a little bit. Tommy Lloyd will have a great game plan, and they'll be focused on getting that victory, and head into these last 2 games of the regular season. And for the women, that Adia Barnes as well, whoever they play, Colorado or Washington, whoever they play
Washington's
on.
terrible. I assumed
Yeah,
earlier it was
I
going to be
assume it'll be
Colorado.
Colorado.
Yeah.
And if it's Colorado, they've played them before. They know how to beat them. They got to get the job done and then have some fun against Stanford. There's
That's right.
nothing to lose. You're supposed to lose. So go in there and see if you can finally knock off Stanford. And if you can't, you get ready for the NCAA tournament.
All right. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks, everybody, for watching on the Huddle, and we'll see you next week at this time.